Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a 7:03 a.m. edition of This Is Our Life, and my wife is sleeping, so I'm going to try to be quiet. I just saw this on Facebook. Utterly amazing. Utterly amazing. This man, he was a Marine, if I remember correctly, during World War II at the Battle for Okinawa, and some guy found his bracelet recently, found his bracelet and returned it to him 70 years later, and he's in his 80s now. It just made me think, and I lived on Okinawa for 5 wonderful years. We lived where the Shurinaha line was, for those who know that. I actually just Googled Shurinaha line. Not much came up. My step grandfather, if you will, my adopted grandfather, um, he was on the USS Texas, the battleship Texas during the war, on in the Pacific. And our chaplain on Okinawa, 20, 25 years before we were there, was there. Not as an officer, not as a chaplain. Mr. Stanford, he's buried at Fort Sam Houston in San Antonio. He was just a soldier, probably a private or a corporal. I don't know what he was at the time, but most of the guys were. There's one story I'm not going to tell you. It's available to you on one of my videos, probably two or three videos, but I'm not going to retell that story because I don't enjoy it. But when we lived in Machinado housing area, behind our house was a hill. Pretty much overlooked everything in the immediate area. And this is just north of Naha, on the north side of Naha. Now Naha extends beyond that area. There were holes or man-made caves, probably sniper positions or infantry positions for the Japanese. I never went up there. I wanted to, but I was scared of the snakes. I was scared of hand grenades. I was scared of landmines. Ugh, it's a generational thing, I guess. From day one, we were taught, don't go sticking your hand under things. Don't go sticking your hand in things. Don't go digging holes, because there were still booby traps from the war. There were still landmines. There were still hand grenades. There were still bullets. People would find human remains. Did I just lose everything? Okay. There were still people would find like the skeletal remains of people, usually Japanese soldiers. I never found anything. Um, there was um, a Japanese command center, bomb shelter. They had just started digging that up when we lived there. They hadn't dug much of it up, and they were having to be really careful because there were still live rounds under there. They were. Let me see if I can turn this off. Close this page, and maybe it'll stop doing this, and I can tell you my stories. But let's see if this will. Oh goodness. Anyway, there were still live artillery shells. When we went down there, my dad took me down there, and the Japanese had built the steps going down at an angle. And so the steps were like this, shaped like this. Well, so if hand grenades went down, they would get trapped, and they wouldn't go all the way down into the facility. There was what brought that facility down? Hand grenades, from what I remember. It had been so beaten, battered, and damaged from the artillery, from the airstrikes, from the ships, that it probably just was just waiting for that one little thing before it caved in. And they had a little display, little glass display case like you'd see if you go into a store. And they had Japanese uniforms in there. I think you could buy them. Don't know if you could buy them today. You know, today they would be, you know, historical items, but then you could buy them. And over by where Shuri Castle is, where it didn't exist when I lived there. Shuri Castle was in utter ruins, total utter ruins. The Japanese had moved into Shuri Castle, and were using it as their headquarters at one point. And so what happened? It was hit with everything the Americans had, and then some. There was an old DC-3. Well, no, it was a DC-3. I mean, it wasn't a C-47. It was a DC-3. And there were bullet holes all along one side. You could see them. There they go, right there. You know, we used to play in that. I never stepped over the line. You know, the locals had gone and taken the rubble from the castle and, you know, piled it up where the walls had been at one point. I never stepped over that. Thankfully, the castle's been rebuilt since I left. My goodness, I left in 1972. And I'd like to go back to Okinawa. I would love to visit Okinawa. I don't mean just a couple of days. I mean a few weeks or months. But I couldn't go inside Shuri Castle out of respect for the Shou dynasty, for His Majesty King Shoen, and for the Okinawans, because that's Okinawan. Um, you know, you don't go into the White House without an invitation. You don't go into I'm trying to think of the names of other places. You know, the Royal Palace in Madrid. You know, you don't just walk into these places. And I don't think Shuri Castle should be someplace people just go in as tourists. It's sacred ground, and it should be respected as sacred ground. You know, I'm not Okinawan, therefore I have no right to go in there. The only way I could go in there is if a descendant of the Shou dynasty were to formally invite me in. And then I would still go in with great respect. It's amazing they found that, you know, I mean, they're still finding things, you know. Even in Europe, from somebody I used to know, he was in was it the Netherlands? I don't remember. He was over there on holidays, and they were still finding landmines in the farms. The farmers would plow up landmines from World War One, not World War Two, but World War One. My dad was Canadian Navy during, or Canadian Merchant Navy, excuse me. My dad was Canadian Merchant Navy in World War Two. His dad was Canadian Navy, first engineer. Bygone era. Not many World War II veterans left. And a lot of the things these guys fought for, And now the very thing that we have in the United States. Cops shooting people indiscriminately, and I'm not talking about Ferguson because I think that was a self-defense issue on the part of the officer. But in other places, police just shoot and kill people. That's what it was like in Spain under Franco, firsthand here. Thankfully, things in Spain have changed significantly. It's amazing. They found this bracelet and the guy's still alive. Amazing. It's amazing.